Here. Right here. Trying to find out what is the optimum location. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Happy Monday. It's beautiful outside. All right, let's go Missouri. Let's go Missouri. I'll tell you what, so I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. I want to thank everybody for coming out. We've got 8 days left until we change the state of Missouri. So it's a great day. Let's go Missouri. Come on. Wake up. I'll tell you, it's been, we're coming to the end of really a year-and-a-half process where we've been talking about this Missouri that we think is going to not only protect our communities and be good for our families, but it's the Missouri that's going to really be a leader in these United States. So I've been talking about this Missouri, and I'm having put now 80,000 miles of highway miles under my belt, meeting Republicans in every corner of this state. We're bringing home a message that's really going to bring a reckoning to this town. It's going to happen right over there. We're going to have a reckoning for the special interests and the powerful in our state. And we're going to start implementing the big red policy ideas that all too often we only see in other big red states, or even worse, the moment the campaign season is over, we never hear about these ideas ever again. So what's the Missouri that I'm talking about? Well, number one, you guys have my commitment today. Number one, that on my first day as governor, we are going to start the deportation of every single one of the 70,000 illegal immigrants that are in this state illegally. I tell you, I have made this commitment, and I don't know if you heard, that puts me on the same page as Donald J. Trump, who this weekend endorsed my candidacy to be the next governor of the state. So Donald Trump, of course, is promising a mass deportation of the illegals across America, and he's actually been winning the country right now. He's been winning the country right now on this idea of being a disruptor in one of the nation's worst slums up in Washington, D.C., where we're going to have that same disruption of the status quo here in Jefferson City. So we're going to start that process. And what's interesting is one of my opponents, Mike Eigel, actually called my plan to deport the illegals. He called it impractical. He called it foolish. He said, you're either for deportation or you're for amnesty. I mean, that's amazing. I didn't have on my bingo card that we were actually going to have a gubernatorial candidate come out in support of amnesty in the state, and yet here we are. So we're talking about a much different Missouri. You know what else we're going to do in the state of Missouri? As your governor, we are going to eliminate personal property tax. No more. If you take away nothing else from this gathering, keep in mind that none of the problems that we have in this state have anything to do with not enough of your cash going to government somewhere. We spend twice per person in this state what other states are spending for local services, state level services, and it's time for us to take a perspective from those other big red states and cut the tax burden. And as a result of getting rid of personal property tax, you're going to actually be able to own your car instead of showing up every December 1st and renting it from government, right? Yeah, I know. So a lot of the things about this election is this Missouri I'm talking about. I know it's the Missouri you want, because I guarantee not you kids, you have to pay personal property tax. But you won't actually. No, you're never going to get this. But for all of you adults in this room, I'm willing to bet that at some point, somewhere along the line, when you have gone down to the DMV and you have written a check, and as you hand that check over to the person sitting across the counter as your rent payment for your car, I'm willing to bet every one of you at some point has said to yourself, why do we pay this tax? Why do we pay this tax? Why does Missouri need to have this tax when other states, 29 other states, have already gotten rid of this tax and they're able to fund their local services? Well, guess what? Under the Eigel administration, Missouri is going to be the 30th state to get rid of that tax. You're going to own your cars. All right, what else do you have? Yes. Very exciting. What about this idea of foreign countries buying our farmland, right? Let me ask you guys a real simple question. How many acres of our farmland do you believe that we should allow foreign countries to buy of Missouri farmland in our state? Zero, right? And the answer is not difficult, and I've yet to get a different answer other than zero from any of the tens of thousands of Missouris I've talked to all over the state. It's really remarkable. And yet, in 2013, before 2013, it was actually illegal for foreign countries to buy our farmland until Mike Keto came along with Mike Carson, and they voted 4 times to allow up to 270,000 acres of our farmland to be sold. So that's why we've been dealing with this problem. And now China has bought almost 50,000 acres of Missouri ground. Another 100,000 acres has been lost to other foreign countries. Well, I want you to know, I happen to think that Missouri ought to be owned by Missourians, or at least Americans.
Amen.
And my commitment to you is not only are we never going to let even a single more acre of Missouri farmland to be sold to foreign entities, we're going to follow in the footsteps of Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders down in Arkansas, and we're going to get every square inch of ground that we've lost back in American hands. We're going to take it. Speaking of other taxes, though, how many of y'all pay property taxes? The kids are still looking at me like, property taxes. So we are spending a record amount of your property taxes on the public school systems. And how many of you are happy with the outcomes and the material that's being shown to our children in those schools? Anybody? And yet, how did this happen? How did this happen that we're allowing this CRT, this DEI, this transgender ideological nonsense get into our schools? We've got pornographic material getting into our schools and our libraries, and your tax dollars are funding it. How did that happen? It happened for 2 reasons. One, the federal Department of Education has been sending money and mandates down through Jefferson City and then sending it out to local public school districts and forcing them to expose our children to it. And the second thing that was required for this to happen is for leadership in Jefferson City to not do anything about it. So both of those things came together, and now less than a third of our kids are able to do reading, writing, and arithmetic at grade level, and parents are absolutely and rightfully furious about what's going on. So I want you to know what I'm going to do. In my first year, in my first budget as the governor of the state, we're going to put a stop to this nonsense. We're going to defund every single dollar coming from the federal Department of Education. And we're going to get rid of all these mandates to teach all this nonsense. And then we're going to start dismantling one of this town's worst bureaucracies, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And when we do that, when we bust up these bureaucracies, we're going to restore control back to those public schools, and we're going to get back to teaching kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, not just vocal lessons. So this Missouri that I'm talking about, it's not popular. It's okay, you can grab that. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Just pass it.
This Missouri that I'm talking about, it's not popular amongst some of the powerful special interests here in Jefferson City. Not popular at all. There are folks down in the Capitol building and in some of the hallways and the lobbyists around this town that they are terrified that a guy like me might win an election like this. But I have been saying for 2 years, that the Missouri I'm talking about is the Missouri that voters, Republicans have been showing up for years, every 2 years, the first Tuesday in November, and demanding from our statewide leadership. But the only reason that we haven't gotten it is because we've got too many weak-kneed politicians, unfortunately, just a few blocks from here, that are afraid to do the right thing. So my commitment to you, because in this town, I'm kind of known as a guy that can be controversial. I'm kind of known as a guy that sometimes doesn't get along with all those special interests and folks down in that Capitol building. And you know what? That's exactly right. I don't work for the special interests. I work for you. My commitment to you is I'm going to confront all these special interests. Just like Donald Trump is confronting the status quo in the swamp in Washington, D.C., we're going to do that here in Jefferson City, and we are going to have a reckoning for all this broken government that's holding our state back. So, 8 days left. We've got 8 days until the primary. I'm asking for your support. If you like what you hear, you want to fight for that Missouri, not only am I asking for your vote, I'm asking for you to show up, maybe some volunteer, help us out for the last few days. If you're willing to make phone calls, if you're willing to knock doors, if you're willing to put a yard sign out in the yards, we have signs, we have all sorts of t-shirts, everything is here. Get involved, get engaged. What we decide on August 6th is almost certainly going to be a reflection of what I believe that the state is going to choose again in November, and it's going to affect this state for the next few years. For me, just me personally, all the campaign speeches aside, who Bill Eigel is personally, I'm a military veteran. I'm actually part of 4 generations of my family that served in the military. My grandfather was a cook for the U.S. Army back in World War II. My father was a pilot for the United States Air Force back in the Vietnam War. Both my wife Amanda and I definitely were, because I was a lot slimmer back in those days, We're aircraft maintenance officers for the United States Air Force. And most recently, my only son, Kevin, is one of the U.S. Navy's newest sailors up in basic training up in Chicago. So we have a long history of going after America's enemies. And it seems like today, yeah, thank you. You know, my son got me a t-shirt for Christmas that says Navy Dad, which for an Air Force veteran like me is something I got to get used to. But hey, you know, we're very proud of it. But we've always pushed back against America's enemies in public service. But it feels like a lot of those enemies are inside our borders right now. They're in our places of power, in our state capitals, our national capitals. And really the biggest threat that we have, I believe, internally in America is this status quo pushing a version of America that I don't know that anybody in this room will recognize. So I'm asking you to be part of that. And when folks ask me, why am I doing all this? And the ideas are great, but what really drives me is not only do I have my son who's serving in the military to save this country, but I also have a daughter. My daughter, Lisa, who's 18. She just turned 18. She just graduated just a few weeks ago. And she's got 4.0 GPA. She's beautiful. Both of those things she got from her mother, right? Not for me, that's for sure. And I tell you, I know that wherever she goes and whatever she does, she's going to be very successful. She's just that awesome. But I'd like to see a Missouri where she could find that opportunity, whether it's to have a family, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to pursue a career. I want a Missouri where she doesn't have to move to all those other big red states in order to find that opportunity. I want her to find it right here in the Show Me State. If God willing, there's some grandchildren in my future, I want them to live and grow up and raise a family of their own right here in the state of Missouri, not in those other red states like Texas and Florida or Tennessee. And if we're successful, the only thing separating us from that future Missouri, from where we're at right now, is a decision, an important decision that we've got to make on August 6th and then a couple months later in November. That's why I'm asking you, please consider supporting the campaign. We've got just a little bit further to go, and we need your help. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. God bless each and every one of you. Let's go, Missouri. So that's the filibuster, which I've done a lot of in this town, actually. But I'm happy to field any questions from anybody. What's on your mind? What do you think? Anybody? Usually we get the first question out, then I'll get a whole bunch. Yes, sir.
You know, Bill, I was telling these guys, I'm a little reluctant to say this, but we moved to Missouri about a year and a half ago. And so I'm going to go on a limb here. We fled California.
Yeah.
The state. And, you know, and I don't mean anything negative about this, but if this is all you know, this is all you know. But we lived in California long enough, we figured the rest of the country was like that. I mean, how do you know? Right. So we moved here, and right off the bat, we come to the state capitol, and we're just visiting the town, and they were talking about, well, they were talking about Jesus. And you don't have that kind of religious freedom in California.
That's right.
And I don't see that here, but I see things are starting to blur.
That's right.
So, you know, I'll tell you, man, you have my full support.
Thank you.
Whatever that's worth, whatever I can do. I love everything I've heard and the research we've done on you, and it's scary times.
Yeah. Yeah, to come from California, look at some of the things they're doing in California right now. They just passed a bill that says if children decide they want to transition to another gender, that the school district doesn't even have to tell their parents. They've passed a bill. Remember a couple of years ago when Gavin Newsom was telling folks that they couldn't use their appliances after 4 p.m. because they had an energy crisis in that state? Things are declining so fast in California that people are fleeing those states, just like you did. And right now, we need to be setting up and implementing the policies that are going to make Missouri strong. Because we're not getting enough folks choosing Missouri, right? Our population overall is stagnant. Primarily, folks are choosing other states. I'm so glad that you've chosen Missouri, but we need a whole bunch of folks to make that decision. And we've got to implement some of the protections, the taxpayer protections, the social protections, the aggressiveness about confronting that status quo that we're seeing in these other states. And by the way, Folks always ask me, because I am a little bit controversial and I am kind of aggressive and sometimes I'm mean to these special interests down in Jefferson City. I get asked a lot, how is a guy like Bill Eigel going to unite the Republican Party? It's actually a really good question. But the answer is really simple. I'm going to do what we haven't gotten from our current governor for the past 8 years, and what I don't think we're going to get from my two opponents, which is I'm going to call on Republicans to do Republican things. I mean, think about those other red states, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. It's not that those other states don't have a few rhinos in their legislature, right? It's not that those states don't have a few moderates in the legislature that, if given an opportunity, will betray the Republican brand if they're in power. The difference between all of those other big red states that are doing big red things in Missouri is that those states have a bold conservative governor that's setting the visionary tone for what Republicans should be doing, and then holding those that don't want to come along in the legislature accountable. I mean, Texas is actually famous for the number of rhinos they have in their legislature, but they've got a guy, Greg Abbott, who's been willing to confront the federal government on the immigration issue, willing to confront the legislature on cutting taxes, and that's what's missing in Missouri right now. Mike Kehoe is looking for opportunities to compromise with the swamp. He's looking for opportunities to compromise and be nice to the status quo. We don't want that. We need someone that's going to confront the status quo. And if we don't get that, then the state is going to continue to stagnate.
Just a comment.
Yes.
She just came here from California.
We
Weeks
don't forget
ago.
Rousey.
All right. People's Republic of California. Yeah, that's good. All right. Absolutely. Any questions? Any questions? You guys?
Well,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
it was Livingston County.
Mhm.
So Mike Kehoe was at my shop Thursday.
Mhm.
And interesting, the purpose was the school system.
Mhm.
I met with him in Dominicos. We talked about our schools, the Rusty Black.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, the farm ground on the north side of me is owned by China.
Really?
Everybody. And he's part of putting that deal together.
Yes. Rusty Black. That's correct.
And how they're getting us to go through with so much opposition in our county. You know, and then he wants, let the immigrants vote just as long as they vote Republican. Oh, that's so wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's, but the school says doing nothing. It needs to be defunded.
Yeah.
Because the last I can't interact with the school anymore. It's done me no good. I got robotics now. That's because the students come in and they can't read, they can't write, they can't do math.
Yep.
They don't even know what's on their resume. We meet with the superintendent. Do you understand how they get these resumes?
Yep.
You know, the teachers are putting them together for them. They're of no value.
And look at the direction that Missouri is going on education. I mean, the reason they don't know how to do reading, writing, arithmetic is we're putting a bunch of this woke nonsense in the schools, right?
We've had 4 transgenders.
Yeah.
The school's pushing them. They're pushing them into me. I can't interact with them.
Yep.
Because it's so bad, it's so toxic. And then here these guys push up, they show up on my door,
Yeah.
and then they're pushing their transgender.
Yeah. It's just crazy. There's no room for any of that
But Mike's,
in our schools.
the school system is very powerful. You don't go against it.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
because it's.
That's right. That's right. And you're exactly right. And if you look at how I funded my campaign, there's really a big difference versus how a guy like Mike Kehoe is funding his campaign. In fact, he just took a $75,000 check this weekend from the Bill Gates family, one of the most leftist organizations in America. That is a terrible, terrible thing. And I think that, the reason he's raised so much money is because he's being embraced by these special interests who know that he's going to look for how to accommodate what they want to do. Well, what they want to do is what we're seeing in our schools. They're going to continue to expand the role of this woke DEI nonsense. So we've got to have someone willing to confront the status quo.
The extension office, it's of no value. They've never been down to my place in 20 years. But I've been in there a dozen times here just this year. And we just want to train. Kids need to be understanding robotics and AI. They need to be doing this. They need to be involved. And they're doing it in China,
Yep.
but Family America is owned by China.
Yep.
So I have to buy from China.
Yep. They're also, yes. the influence of the special interest got. I mean, Desi used to be an office of 7 people whose only job was to send checks to the local school districts. Now it's a bureaucracy of over 1,800 individuals, 1,800. And none of the legislators actually know where any of the money's going. So it's very frustrating. And Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson have been protecting that environment. So we're going to get more of the same.
Because they're profiting.
Sure. Any other, Jody?
I think I know the answer to this question, but it's been asked of me a lot, so I would appreciate it if you would speak to, I know that you, of course, don't want to defund our law enforcement,
Yes.
but could you speak to how you're going to actually support our law enforcement across the state, the highway patrol,
Yes.
the city police departments?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I know there was an email put out by I think one of the organizations supporting Mike Kehoe that said I was going to defund the highway patrol's retirement system. Listen, we're in the silly season of Missouri politics, 8 days before the election. My opponents, and these attacks are coming from Kehoe and his allies, they have no vision and no message of what's going to make a stronger Missouri. So they're out there lying about me every day and trying to convince you that I'm something that I'm not. That the reality is I've been exactly who I promised to be in 8 years of serving in the Missouri State Senate. That's why all these special interests hate me. So don't buy into that. Here's what we're going to do for law enforcement. One, we're going to actually start paying them for the work that they do. You know, one of the few vetoes that Mike Parson found in the budget was for some of the pay raises to recruit and retain highway patrol officers here in the state of Missouri. So, I mean, in spite of all the rhetoric, he's the one that's actually been not defunding, but vetoing some of those pay raises. So we're going to make sure they have the equipment they need. We're also, for the areas of our state that are being hurt by the most criminal activity, the city of St. Louis, we're going to start taking over some of the functions of that city. So we know that the citizens there and the whole St. Louis market are going to get the protection that they deserve for their property and themselves. In fact, we've been working on something here in Jefferson City for the past couple of years where we would actually have state control of the police force down in Jefferson City. But that keeps getting stymied because folks are too worried about what the Democrats think versus what we should be doing to actually help our state. I've been kind of at the forefront of this. You know, if we want to stand behind our officers, you know, we have officers that are under attack by the woke left. You know, the officer Eric DeValcanaire in Kansas City, who was found guilty by a very liberal court. And really, he was only guilty of defending his partner, has been sitting in jail. And I'm the only one talking about actually getting that man, that defender of our rights, a pardon when I first go into office. So if we're serious about defending the police, then we've got to start doing these things and not just letting it show up as a campaign commercial. So we're going to back our officers. We're going to make sure they're fully funded. We're not going to do anything. I don't know any rational Republican down in Jefferson City that's trying to fund a retirement system for our cops. All right. One more.
Somebody told me this morning they heard on the talk radio that Trump really didn't endorse you with a picture was fake. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard that, but I can assure you it's not fake. It's not fake. It's
I thought you might want to know.
You know, it would be, if it is out there, then it's just one more lie by my opponents. Again, my opponents are just, they have such a disassociation with the truth. This is really where they're at right now in the last 8 days of the campaign. It's because they're losing. I'm not worried about that. We're going to keep talking about this Missouri where we're deporting the illegals, where we're cutting personal property taxes. We're excited about that.
And tell us about pro-life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been pro-life my entire time in the Missouri Senate, and for as long as I've been on this earth, I've been pro-life. I'm 100% pro-life. I'm the only candidate in this race that actually voted and helped pass the heartbeat bill, which actually outlawed abortion in the state of Missouri in the first place. I've actually been calling on one of my opponents, Jay Ashcroft, to reject the abortionist initiative petition from the ballot. You know, this abortion petition that's slated to be on the ballot in November is actually unconstitutional. It's got multiple subjects. It doesn't have an accurate fiscal note. Jay Ashcroft should have rejected that from the ballot a long time ago, but he continues to let it get on the ballot, just like he let Amendment 3 that legalized marijuana get on the ballot, and he let Clean Missouri get on the ballot, Medicaid expansion. He's not doing his job. So I'm the one that's actually putting my money where my mouth is when it comes to the pro-life issue. And I'll always be pro-life. I don't believe in creating new exceptions to the heartbeat bill, like Mike Kehoe has said that he would support. And so I feel like I'm the guy that's actually the proven conservative on being 100% pro-life.
IP reform that, you know, they almost get it to the
Yes.
finish line and
I tell you, initiative petition reform was something we were trying to pass at the end of the legislative session to protect our constitution from these abortionists. And every year, it's Groundhog Day because our leadership finds, our Senate leadership or House leadership find a way to derail that bill. And then our statewide leadership says nothing. I mean, when initiative petition reform was dying on the Senate floor, does anybody remember what Mike Parson was saying or Mike Kehoe was saying about that? Nothing. They didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. And what's required for evil to triumph.
people get nothing, people do nothing.
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys have been fantastic. God bless each and every one of you. Before I go, I do want to introduce a couple folks, a couple other statewide candidates. We've got, I'm going to do the troublemaker first. So, Danny, so if we have, let's go. I want to give him a chance to say hello. Denny has been working with me and fighting with me in the Missouri Senate for 8 years. So he has been working very hard. We need, obviously, I've got some concerns about how our Secretary of State office is going to run. I think Denny would make a fantastic choice for Secretary of State. I've already endorsed Denny, and I would encourage you to extensively, consider him for your vote. So Denny Hoskins, everybody.
I'm State Senator Denny Hoskins from Lawrenceburg, Missouri. I actually grew up here in mid-Missouri, graduated from Fatima High School and Russellville as well as Element. So I grew up a TK, teacher's kid. Some of you may have had my dad as a superintendent or elementary school principal or high school math teacher, or my mom actually was an elementary school librarian for Florida here in Jefferson City. So it's Missouri always has a special place in my heart. I'm a veteran of the Missouri Army National Guard, a certified public accountant, and a conservative fighter who believes that our rights come from God, not state government. So Senator Eigel and I came into the Senate together. We've both been conservative fighters. We fought a lot of conservative battles out on the Senate floor together. But as far as Secretary of State goes, I believe that the most secure elections are in person on election day with a photo ID and a paper ballot. No, I don't trust the election machines, especially after what happened in Puerto Rico. Raise your hand if you heard what happened in Puerto Rico in their primary election. A few of you. So about a month ago, Puerto Rico had their primary elections, and they had Dominion voting machines and paper ballots. And guess what? After the election, they couldn't reconcile the vote count between the Dominion voting machines and the paper ballots. But they said, oh, rest assured, they'll get all the things figured out in the general election. That's just one of the reasons that I have a lot of questions about using voting machines. And one of the reasons Senator Eigel and I have both filed bills to hand count ballots here in the state of Missouri. We used to be able to have hand count. And then the second thing is, unfortunately, in some of our public libraries here in the state of Missouri, we have X-rated material in the kids section. And they also are having drag show queen story hour for kids. Well, number one, it's not appropriate for kids. You wouldn't take your 10-year-old daughter to a rated R movie. And number two, your state taxpayer dollars shouldn't be paying for it. And so I said, hey, as your next Secretary of State, I will withhold any funds that go to the public libraries to come through the Secretary of State's office because of those exact things. You shouldn't be paying for it, and it's not appropriate for kids. I'm Denny Hoskins from the Secretary of State. I most certainly would appreciate your vote, support, and consideration on August 6th. So thank you. And then next up speaker, we have Lori Rook. Lori Rook, who's running for president.
So I'm from Springfield, Missouri, southwest part of the state. That's where I was born and raised. And I've never been in politics before. So I jumped into the deep end, is what they tell me. But I'm in estate planning and elder law attorney down there. I've been practicing almost 18 years. I've got 9 offices and I own the firm. So I'm a business owner as well. And I see both sides of the coin there. I know what it's like to dip into my own pocket and keep the lights on and keep payroll going. So I'm a mom of three. My oldest is going to be 19 in a few months and heading off to college. And then I've got a son that's 15 and a daughter that's 12. I've been married 21 years and my husband is a Marine vet. So got into politics, kind of a crazy story, but I got a call a few years ago from some conservatives in my area that thought I might be a good fit or candidate for the treasurer's office. There was an appointment coming available. And so I'm very much of the belief that things like that don't just happen. There's actually a reason, and it's probably beyond what I would imagine. And so, like I said, it wasn't anything that was ever on my radar to be in politics. I want to be an attorney for as long as I can remember, and I feel like I've accomplished a lot of my career goals. So, but you know, God's had other plans for me, and so I did go through that appointment process and quickly realized that there was really not a process involved. It was a game. And I decided that I got told in the interview process, no, thank you, you're an outsider. And those words were actually said to me. And so I was really shocked by the brazenness of that. I wasn't so much shocked that it was actually that was what was going on, but just the more that we were just going to, you know, no, go away, do your time kind of thing. So I did tell the governor's office that they should appoint me for that reason, because I am an outsider and we need more outsiders in Jeff City. I believe that we need more people not bought and paid for that aren't compromised by the special interests of the lobbyists, and that actually have Missourians' best interest in mind. So I did tell the governor's office that if I didn't like who they appointed, I was going to run anyway. So here we are, 18 months later, and we've got 8 days to go. And when this all started, I was some woman from Springfield. They wouldn't say my name, and I was not taken seriously. And I love to prove people wrong. So I roll my sleeves up and continue to work and all over the state. And my message is ringing with people. So what I want to do in the treasurer's office is bring transparency. We have this budget that's ballooned, more than doubled in the last 5 years. And I wanted to know why and where that money was going, and I was met with roadblock after roadblock in trying to discover some of that information when it came to certain programs. And so I want to expand our online checkbook system. It's not my definition of a checkbook, and it's probably not yours either. And I also want to bring transparency to where we're actually investing our money. It's very easy to come into Missouri and set up an LLC overnight and apply for different programs like the MoBucks program. So I discovered a few things in my search for truth and information that in our public, our history museums, for example, our tax dollars are going to fund LGBTQI/drag show, in my opinion, exhibits. If you look at the St. Louis History Museum, what they did in Pride Month, that was extremely disturbing. And we're funding that sort of thing. And the treasurer sits on that board. And we need to do a better job of being proactive and looking at where this money is actually going before it goes out the door. So I could talk for a really long time. Those of you that know me know that I'm very passionate about this. And so, but I would appreciate your vote on August 6th. My name is Lori Rook. You can go to lorirook.com for more information. And I've got cards here as well. So thank you very much.
Well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to vote on August 6th. If everybody here talks to 10 other folks, or 10 other friends, or 10 other family members, and they talk to 10 folks, we're going to win this race by the margin. So this is a big decision that we've got to make on August 6th. It's going to be with us. This decision is going to be with us for 4 to 8 years. So keep in mind, research all the candidates, ask questions. God bless you all. You guys have a great week.